asked me if I'd like an Altoid. In that moment, I realized I crossed some barrier that had kept so many at bay. When Veronica talked about Giannis, she didn't talk to me about his basketball awards, how he was a generational player, changing the modern-day NBA. She talked about how kind he was, how protective he was, how proud she was of him that no matter how big his bank account became, he never changed. Very few outside of the family knew these sides of Giannis. The only thing people really knew was that he grew up very poor, selling trinkets by the side of the street to help his family put food on the table, living as an undocumented Black person in Greece. And that somehow he had a miraculous rise and made it to America, made it to the highest rung of the NBA and global superstardom. But there was no connective tissue between impoverished child and NBA MVP. Storytelling, it occurred to me, on that day in Milwaukee was missing. And that's why I set out to write this book. I wanted to tell Giannis's full story, illuminate Giannis the person, not just the basketball player. Giannis the brother, the protector, the soon-to-be father. So that sent me on a quest from March 2020 to March 2021 to interview anyone and everyone who ever knew Giannis, from back home in Sepolia, Greece, to Milwaukee and everywhere in between. I ended up interviewing 221 people, including family members, friends, coaches, and teammates, as well as Bucks personnel and opponents, to find out how this person overcame improbable odds to achieve improbable dreams. Now, keep in mind, we were in a pandemic as I was reporting this. Thank goodness for WhatsApp, which allowed me to make free international calls to dozens of Greek people that knew Giannis best. I'd wake up at the crack of dawn and interview people around 6 a.m. my time to account for the time difference. You could hear the joy in their voices when I asked about young Giannis, or, as they called him, Giannakis, Greek for little Giannis. I talked with those that saw Giannis when he first picked up a ball, when he was so skinny and so lanky and so inexperienced he kept traveling with the ball, committing violation after violation. He hated basketball at first. That's right. The now two-time MVP hated basketball. Through countless hours spent talking with his childhood and teenage best friends, a picture of him began to take shape. He was deeply emotional, would cry after losses, but had a resilience to him. The kid would never break, no matter how rough things got, as his mother would leave the house in the early hours in the morning to sell items to survive. Through the kindness and goodness of people who gave him apples, bananas, yogurts, he kept pushing himself in practice and learned to actually love basketball, fighting through playing on an empty stomach. And then I found the parts of his story that others tried to cover up. The racism he experienced, the violence surrounding him in his neighborhood, always looming. I learned about the fight to get him citizenship papers, the way the Greek government dragged its feet for an unknown Black basketball player that was not yet deemed worthy by the upper echelon of basketball and government. I talked to the scouts that were perplexed on how to scout a prospect that couldn't leave the country, that played against such weak competition. But talking with those that took a chance on him, saw potential in him, I realized that the best journeys are those that are the most windy, the most difficult, and that Giannis' struggle wouldn't end once he landed in America, with more money than he had ever dreamed of. I reveal a young Giannis who was lost, lonely, scrawny as a rookie in Milwaukee, plagued by a deep sense of guilt and isolation. I found how hesitant he was to spend money, to not forget his roots, his family. I tell the story of the rise of the Milwaukee Bucks, too, and how the 7-foot wonderkind was about to save the dormant franchise that hadn't won a title since the days of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What you'll find in this audiobook is the story of a person who didn't give up, a person who personifies work ethic and dignity and passion and sacrifice. He is more than the personification of the American dream. He is someone that proves that no matter where you start, there is no limit to what you can achieve. Prologue. Giannis Antetokounmpo and his family didn't